The Sergeant at Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, sirs, we're going to use Friday's invocation for this morning. Our pastor will be coming later this afternoon, so we will, at our second session this afternoon is when we have our scheduled invocation, so we'll substitute the prior one.
Shut. I need to reopen.
I'm sorry? Sorry, we closed by mistake. Let's go ahead and do a quorum call again.
Mr. President. There we go.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 39 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is again back in session. Don't believe we are starting out with any resolutions today. Let's see if we have any guests. Do we have guests to start with? Guests? No guests? All right, how about we do our pages if we'd like to have the pages be introduced. Yes, recognize the co-chair of the protocol committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we have a new group of pages. It's not their first time, though. This is their second round, so let's give them a warm Senate welcome. Our first page hails from District 22, Eleanor Roosevelt High School. Nope, I'm reading the House list. I apologize. Strike that. We'll start over. First page hails from District 34, Aberdeen High School. Samaya Barksdale. Samaya, welcome. Welcome. Next page is District 26, Crossland High School. Omari Barnes. Omari, welcome back. Our next page is from District 44, Mount DeSales Academy. Nina Campbell. Our next page is from District 46, Baltimore City College High School. Annabelle Fogelman. Our next page is District 31, Chesapeake Science Point Public Charter School. Amanda Morataya. Our next page is District 30, Severn School. Cooper Morton. Welcome back. Our next page is District 13, Hammond High School. I had it before session. I apologize. Oluwakamai Asamalu. Did I get it? Daggone it. Well, we're going to work on that, colleagues. I apologize. The next page is District 15, Poolesville High School. Krish Puda. And our last page is District 36, North Carolina High School. Liam Wallace.
Excellent. Well, welcome back, pages. We are so pleased to have you with us here today, and we're going to have an interesting week. Today will be a busy day, but the rest of the week will be a little bit more routine. So you'll get an interesting perspective this week. So you'll get a little bit of all of the things. So we're pleased to have you all. All right, let's see. Do we have anything else before we jump in? Yes, recognize Senator from District 6.
I want to thank Mr. Herman himself at Mr. Herman's Bakery to supply the donuts today for all of us. And also, Chicken Ruth, they limited me, so I bought extras for everybody. But if you didn't have one, please go in the back room and enjoy a donut from Herman's Bakery. And thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. And I believe they are closing down, which was there. So we appreciate their.
If I could, Mr. President.
Very briefly, Senator.
Yes, real quick. Mr. Herman's, of course, they're closing. They had 103 years of service to the community. So we have a special citation we're going to give to them. But good man, just couldn't get the help. I think it's happening a lot. So we're going to be there for him the day before, give him a citation, and tell him thank you for his service. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Let's see. Any further announcements before we jump into things? If not, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. It's going to be a little bit of a busy back and forth day today. We've got probably a couple hours this morning. We will pause. Executive nominations will have to meet. We'll see whether committees have some voting in between to be determined, and then we'll have a couple sessions this afternoon or this evening. So we're gonna make it work and figure out along the way. So we are going to start quickly. This is the one that we did at the very end on Friday. This is a third reading calendar. It's number 64. This is the one we had to do an amendment at the very last second. Made it the first order of business today. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 858, Senator Heddleman, Department of Budget and Management, Audit and Finance Compliance Unit, Establishment.
All right, Senate Bill 858 is on third reading for final passage. Recognize the senator from Howard and Montgomery.
Yes, Mr. President, I have an amendment. Would it be possible to move this back to second reader?
Senator has moved to reconsider the vote by which this bill was passed on to third reader. Any objections to the motion? Without objection, the motion carries. The bill is now back on second reading for purposes of an amendment. Senator from District 9 has an amendment. Pages are distributing the senator's amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a member of the Joint Audit Committee, I felt it was really important that at least the Joint Audit Committee members all get on this great bill, and several other people wanted to hop on as well. So with that, I would move the amendment. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Check with the floor leader.
This is a very friendly amendment. We happily accept it.
All right. Any objections from the floor? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 858 is again ordered printed for third reading. All right. Let's go to, we've got a message from the House. These are bills passed from first reading House bills. Clerk, read the bills.
House Bill 11, Delegate Simmons, Anne Arundel County Sheriff appointments of majors, judicial proceedings.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to their appropriate standing committees. Let's go to calendar 23, first reading House bills. Clerk, read the bills.
House Bill 22, Delegate Schindler, Correctional Services, Incarcerated Individuals, Identification Cards, Driver's Licenses, and Birth Certificates, Judicial Proceedings.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. They will also be sent to their appropriate standing committees. Let's go ahead and start with the Finance Committee. Has several calendars today. Let's start with report number 28. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 84, Senator Kramer, State Personnel Collective Bargaining, Graduate Assistance, favorable with one amendment.
All right. Senate Bill. Chair of the committee. Vice Chair of the committee. Bill sponsor. Second reader.
It's mine.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 84 is amended, generally authorizes collective bargaining for a graduate assistant, which means a student who is a teaching, administrative, or research assistant at the University of Maryland College Park or the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Amendment 1 amends the bill as described and delays the effective date by 2 years until July 1, 2028. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Recognize Senator from District 2.
Thanks, Mr. President. Just had a quick question for the floor leader, if you
Floor
wouldn't
leader
mind.
yield. Senator may proceed.
I believe, and I see in the title there, graduate assistants. So are these students or are they employees?
They are employees who are also students at the university.
So they're employees who are also students. Okay, because my next question was going to be the definition of employee, but
I'm
implying-
sorry, I cannot hear you.
Understood. No, I think Mr. President, can we lay this bill over under the rule for now?
The Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 455, Senator Rosapep, Economic Development Transformational Project Financing Program Establishment, favorable with two amendments.
Recognize the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 455, as amended, establishes transformational project financing program and related fund within the Department of Housing and Community Development. Development districts that have a transformational plan for which the local governing body has approved a tax increment finance, aka TIF plan, before July 1st, 2035, and has pledged certain real property tax increment revenues. A state-supported development district is eligible for annual disbursement of net new state revenue, including income and sales tax and use tax, attributed to the district as determined and certified by the comptroller to be deposited in an established special fund for the life local bonds, but not to exceed 30 years after the state-supported development district is completed. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 authorizes colonization under certain circumstances, require the comptroller to adopt regulations regarding displacement adjustment percentages and displays delays the effective date to July 1st, 2027. There was no opposition at the committee. I move the adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 455 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 623, Senator Watson, Retail Tobacco Businesses and Establishment of Premium Cigar Lounge, Alcoholic Beverage License, Maryland Premium Cigar Lounge Act of 2026. Favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 623, as amended, authorizes the local board of license commissioners of the state to issue a Class C PCL license to the holder of a tobacconist license, authorizing the holder to sell alcoholic beverages for an on-premise consumption. The bill also authorizes the local board to authorize a licensed tobacconist to allow a customer to bring alcoholic beverages on the premises for consumption. The premises are exempt from requirements of the Clean Air Indoor Air Open Act. There are two amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2, as specified, exempts Montgomery County from the provisions of the bill. I move the amendments to the adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 623 is hereby ordered. Oh, I'm sorry, we have an amendment. Recognize the Senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have an amendment for Howard County.
All right, we have an amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the Senator's amendment. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Yes, the Senate delegation wishes that in Howard County, the preference be given to a licensed tobacconist that has been operating in the county for at least 5 years preceding the effective date of the act.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Let's hear from the floor leader.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of what you said.
Question for the maker of the amendment.
Yes, it's just that preference be given in Howard County to a licensed tobacconist that has been operating in the county for at least 5 years immediately preceding the effective date of the act. So it's basically if you've been there for 5 years and you've been following the rules, then you should get preference in Howard County.
Got you. Mr. President, I'd like to, well, I'm not sure if it's a motion, but you'll tell me. But I want to hold on. We haven't had a chance. This is a surprise completely, which is unusual. So I'd like to hold this for a minute so we can contemplate it and then come back with an answer for you.
Senator wish to lay over the bill? Yeah, okay. Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 777, Senator Salling, Labor and Employment Workforce Development and Local Workforce Development Boards, Local Workforce Solutions Investment Act, favorable.
All right, recognizing the Senator from the 37th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 777. That's the special number, Mr. President. Senate Bill 777 requires the Maryland Department of Labor to allocate money from the Hospital Employees Retraining Fund to the Local Workforce Development Board in the affected county or region in the event of a hospital closing, delicensing, downsizing, or possible downsizing or merger. The bill alters the state's quick response program established under the Economic Stabilization Act to generally place more responsibility and requirements on local workforce development boards. The department must forward certain Economic Stabilization Act notices to the appropriate local workforce development board. The bill also incorporates local workforce development boards into certain provisions regarding apprenticeship career training in our neighborhoods program. There are no amendments. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. On any discussion, any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 777 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 831, Senator Ferguson, Labor Law, Child Labor Penalties, Private Sector Employee Labor Relations, and State Employee Labor Standards, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill's for the children. Senate Bill 831 prohibits a unit in the executive branch from petitioning or applying to the federal government for a waiver of any federal Fair Labor Standards Act provision that is applicable to the unit. The bill also prohibits employers from forming specified employee involvement organizations that are not subject to the National Labor Relations Act or under the jurisdiction of the National Labor Relations Board. The bill expands the jurisdiction of the Public Employee Relations Board to cover private employees under specified conditions and authorizes the Commissioners of Labor and Industry to assess a civil penalty against a person who violates specified child labor laws. There are 2 amendments. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 makes the provisions relating to the public employee relations contingent upon the NLRA being repealed or rendered null and void, or the NLRB expressly ceding jurisdiction to the states. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 831 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 932, Senator Harris, Consumer Protection, Social Media Platforms, Display of User Location, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing Senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 932 generally requires a person that operates a social media platform to display to a state user the general geographical location of each user whose account is visible to the state user on the social media platform. General geographical location means the city and country derived from the Internet protocol address of the network connection through which a user's device accesses the social media platform. A person that operates a social media platform may not display the general geographical location of a user who the person knows or has reason to know is a minor. Violation of the bill is an unfair, abusive, or deceptive trade practice under the Maryland Consumer Protection Act and subject to its civil penalty provisions, except provisions that allow for a private right of action. Amendment 1 narrows the definition of social media platform to model a definition from another state. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, recognize Senator from the 42nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of questions on this bill, so therefore I'd like to ask that it be laid over under Rule 53.
All right, Senator moves to lay over the bill. The motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. All right, let's go to calendar number 29. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 340, Senator Heddleman, Nursing Facilities Medicaid Quality Assessment, Funding of Office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman, favorable with 2 amendments.
All right. Recognize the Senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 340, as amended, requires the governor, beginning in fiscal 2027, to include in the annual budget bill an appropriation of at least $2 million to support the Office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman in the Department of Aging. The funds are to be drawn from a specified fund that receives remittances from managed care organizations that do not meet a specified minimum loss ratio requirement in current law. If the total amount of the money in the fund is not sufficient to cover the mandated appropriation, general funds must be used. The funds appropriated under the bill are in addition to and may not supplant existing funding. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 strikes the funding sources in the bill as introduced and substitutes the funding sources as described. I move the amendments and adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 340 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 489, Senator Lamb, Health Occupations Physicians Trained in International Medical Schools, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 489, as amended, authorizes the Board of Physicians beginning in October 1st, 2028, to issue a limited license to practice medicine to a physician trained and licensed in a foreign country who meets specified requirements. The term of the limited license may not exceed 3 years and authorize the holder to practice medicine only while employed full-time by a healthcare facility and in the employing healthcare facility or a related facility. The bill also repeals an existing fifth pathway program related to graduates of an international medical school. There are 2 committee amendments. The first is technical and also adds sponsors. Amendment 2 strikes the bill as introduced and substitutes the program as described. Move the 2 committee amendments, the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 489 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 496, Senator Hershey, Maryland Medical Assistance Program coverage for the treatment of obesity, favorable.
Recognize Senator from the 36 is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 496 authorizes Medicaid beginning January 1st, 2027 to provide comprehensive coverage for the treatment of obesity, including coverage for intensive behavioral therapy, bariatric surgery, which are both covered already, and any medication approved by the FDA with an indication for chronic weight management in patients with obesity. Medicaid may undertake utilization management to determine medical necessity and appropriateness by November 1st, 2027. MDH must report to the specified committees on whether Medicaid has begun to provide comprehensive coverage for the treatment of obesity. There are no amendments. There's no fiscal note in its current form. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator, please take that, if we could pull that back on the report. We're going to Senator from the 28th on the favorable committee report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Question for the floor leader.
Question for the floor leader on the report. Senator may proceed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we know that, floor leader, thank you for answering my questions. We know that obesity is a huge problem in the state and this country and lead to a lot of costs and health problems. My question is, for this coverage to take place, what is the fiscal note that is in the bill?
The bill, because it is just making a request to authorize MDH to move forward with requesting this within the state plan amendment from Medicaid. Because it does not direct them and say that they shall do it, there's no fiscal note at this time.
So what's the estimated $449.4 million annual number in the fiscal summary?
So what
like $449.4 million annually.
So what the fiscal note writers did that said that if utilization was included, in other words, if the department went to Medicaid, asked for this, that it could be up to $449 million. But as we've said in several years, we've had this bill for a few years, we have thought that the method on which the fiscal note writers came up with that number was based on a very high uptake or utilization. And then, of course, they took the price at retail price, and then they multiplied it out to get this number. What we've seen in other states that have gone forward with this, that the utilization ends up being about 3.5% to 7%, not 25%, as though the fiscal note writers put it. And obviously the price of the drug has come down a lot. Second, what it doesn't consider is the offsets. So in other words, this is a very preventative action. This is on the lines of preventative care. People with obesity are more prone to have other diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, things that we had talked about in the committee. There has been evidence that shows that as people lose weight, those types of comorbidities decrease. So the fiscal note doesn't doesn't go into doing any of those offsets. In other words, it's very static. It's not dynamic in the fact that it doesn't come back and see what the savings to our healthcare system would be.
Thank you for that. So this 449.4 million, and use a lot of ifs. So let's say if this is approved, who would pay that 449.4 million?
Well, again, it's an estimate. Right?
Yeah,
As I stated.
Yeah. So we're just talking about ifs and
at the end of the day, this would be a cost to Medicaid in our state.
So who would pay for it, the state or the feds?
There's a shared cost of Medicaid within the federal government and the state government.
There's a shared. So who would pay what of that $449.4 million annually? I mean, that's the number they give us, so that's the only number we have to work with. So, let's work with that number, $449.4 million.
So let's just say it's been the way that Medicaid's been before. What? 50-50, I think it's been for a lot of Medicaid. That there is an expense that Medicaid covers, the federal government through CMS covers. It's about 50%.
So the state would have to pick up how much of that 449.4 million?
Again, going on your estimate that this is accurate.
No, that's not my estimate. That's the fiscal number.
Yeah, but I mean, the line of questioning you're saying, assuming that this is accurate number, right?
Yeah, we have nothing else to go by.
Right. So then again,
analysts do great work here. So.
But again, I gave you several reasons on why we didn't think that it was an actual and appropriate cost, because it took a high utilization rate, and it didn't also go over the other comorbidities that people being healthier because they're not obese would not have to go through. So again, it's not as simple as just saying what I said. Here's the uptake. Here's the cost of prescription meds. Here's the multiplication on what it's going to cost. There are a lot of savings that could be there as well too, because people are not as obese,
right?
And hypertension and things of that nature, diabetes. I mean, we spend, I think one of the biggest prescription drug costs that we have in the state is through diabetes and the treatment of diabetes. Right. And if there's a healthier population because people are not as obese, then that cost drives way down, and that's not in the $449 million.
Right. So with the $449.4 million, the number we have from our experts, 50-50. Maryland will pick up, say, 50%, and the federal government will pick up 50%. So $200+ million, right? What's the likelihood with all the cutbacks coming from the federal government in Medicaid? What's the likelihood of that money coming from the Trump administration to Maryland?
What's the likelihood?
Yeah, what's the likelihood? We're talking about ifs.
50-50, same thing, 50-50.
50-50 chance.
Yeah, sure, why not?
I'm sorry?
I said, yes, 50-50, sure, why not? I mean, you're asking me for an estimate, so that's what I'm saying.
I'm saying they might pick it up, they might not pick it up, right?
That's what 50-50 means, yep.
Yeah. But this number, if we pass this bill, it will sit out there as a $449.4 million annual potential cost, which will get stuck against this structural deficit we have, because all these bills we pass with this price tag on it adds to the structural deficit and makes us look like idiots because our deficit is going so much higher, but based on ifs, and then this number is reported to the press that our structural deficit is just so high, and these idiots in Annapolis just raising the deficit and, make us look like fools. Maybe not us, but maybe me as a senator. So when we pass a bill and stick this high fiscal number on aid legislation, based on a lot of ifs, we measure it. And if we have to pick up all this money, hey.
Sure do have a lot of ifs in this statement as well, too, don't you?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
I said you sure do have a lot of ifs in your statement
as
well,
senators,
too.
please, if we could not, the senator, if we could just keep it, question asked, question answered, please.
And whose turn is it?
Senator, 28th.
Okay, yeah. So, Mr. Floor Leader, I'm just going by your words, and you're saying if. So I'm just basically echoing, parroting your ifs, because all these ifs are there, and I made a statement about the structural deficit that we are criticized for so much in Maryland. And this bill, with all these ifs, that number, that fiscal note, will go in that structural deficit, which I mean, $449.4 million is a lot of money to me. And then it will just balloon that structural deficit, and then folks in a certain party will rail how these majority members just ballooning this deficit, ruin the Maryland economy. And that's analysis. Is that a fair analysis?
No.
Okay. So what is fair? This wouldn't affect the structural
I've already
deficit?
gone over what I thought was a fair analysis of where the fiscal note was and how it was drawn up. I also said that this is enabling legislation. It might not happen. I also said that there's a number of offsets that could happen because there's a healthier population, and this actually may drive down healthcare costs.
Okay. Is that analysis ever show up in the structural deficit, how much we might save if we do these?
I think if the Department of Health moved forward with this, they would put together what's called a state plan amendment that says, here's how we're going to implement something. Here's how we're going to request that Medicaid covers something. Here's what we think the costs are going to be. It would be a much more detailed state plan amendment than just a fiscal note.
And so you started that answer with an if.
Just a reminder, the senator started.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. The floor leader indicated another if. And
because it's enabling legislation, so that is kind of what an if would be, if they do something, right?
And the question is, do all these ifs, when we have a number on a bill like this, go into what we call the structural deficit? If we fund all these bills that we put through?
I would assume not, no. I mean, we pass a lot of bills that have special funds for them, that create a new fund, and it says that the governor may include money into this fund. Other types of bills that, again, are enabling, that carry potentially a fiscal note if they were to be implemented. So I wouldn't think that next year's structural deficit would include $449 million because a fiscal note writer drafted it, and that MDH may enact something in the future.
Well, Floor Leader, thank you for the answer. But how is the structural deficit determined? All these bills we pass with a number that is attached to it, if it's funded, and that word, I use that word if it's funded, then it creates that structural deficit, which we rail against here in Annapolis. Is that a false?
Probably. I didn't hear your statement.
Okay. My question was, it was a question.
Okay.
How are our structural deficits determined? Isn't it based on the bills we pass with a number that's attached to it? And if we fund those bills, then this creates this huge structural deficit?
I think structural deficits are more related to mandates and not other pieces of legislation that may have a funding category to it. So it's mandated spending that you're looking at in a structural deficit.
Well, if it's mandated, then it's just a deficit, which we have to cut things to fix. But structural is if we fund everything that's in a bill that we pass, then this will happen.
I'm not sure that's completely accurate, but I'm not on the budget subcommittee.
Just for clarity purposes, this is where spending affordability, and at the end, each DLS works with revenue agency to determine which one count towards ongoing spending as opposed to one time. So it's a committee discussion and decision.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. The floor leader indicated that he's not familiar with the structural deficit issue. So is it appropriate to
I said
ask
I wasn't.
Senator, please. The senator has the floor. Senator has the floor. Senator has the floor.
Is it appropriate to ask someone on the budget committee to explain what a structural deficit is? Because when you talk about almost a $500 million annual cost, it's important for us to know what a structural deficit is. Is that appropriate, Mr. President?
Yes, with the caveat that our chair has been listening to another member of the Budget and Tax Committee. We'd like to recognize the vice chair of the committee. Yield to the vice chair.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President.
Could you repeat the question?
Okay.
I want to be sure I'm precisely answering it.
So the debate is about the structural budget deficit.
Yes.
How is that structural budget deficit determined? If we pass this bill, which is almost a $500 million annual cost, according to the fiscal summary, does that number, is that measured anywhere with that structural deficit that we hear about so many times?
Both the Department of Budget and Management and DLS do their own projections for projected shortfalls in the future. They do it based on existing law and previous appropriations.
Okay. So if this bill passes, it'll become an existing law, correct?
If it's a law, it's a law.
If this bill passed, Senate Bill 496, it becomes a law, correct?
I'll go with
And
that
when
one.
it becomes a law, then it's measured basically on potential liability state might have. And that goes in the structural
as the
deficit.
floor manager mentioned in some detail, and I'm less familiar with the bill than he is, there are lots of ifs and caveats in there, and so it'd be a judgment call by DBM and by DLS as to whether any cost should be included in projected future commitments.
Okay, thank you. So is it possible the judgment could be, since this bill became a law and this number is there, it could be added to the structural deficit?
It could, or it might not be.
Okay, could. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And Mr. President, I'm just concerned that we are putting something out there at a high fiscal note in this really difficult economic times that could be a liability of the state. You know, we passed a Child Victim Protection Act, and that turned out was a multi-billion-dollar liability to the state. And we had to come back and fix that. And the victims felt that they were being re-victimized by us correcting a faulty fiscal analysis we did not consider when that process went through. So I'm just saying, a bill like this with a high fiscal note that could be added to a fiscal structural deficit, we have to be very careful in putting that possibility that if in basically the structural deficit, which make us look like we don't know what the heck we're doing here in Annapolis. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the report, recognize the Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. This got a small statement I want to read here on the state of a physical note, Mr. Floor Leader and Mr. President. It says MDH can submit the requested report with existing budgeted resources. Isn't that what it states, Mr. Foreman or Mr. Floor Leader?
Yes, that's what we said. In the current posture of the bill, and we've had this bill for a few different years.
Yes.
In its current posture, that's why we put it in this way, that there is no fiscal note.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, recognize the Senator from District 12 on the favorable report.
So I have an amendment, but the report has not been adopted yet, right? We're still waiting.
It has not been. Right.
Okay, all right.
Any further discussion on the report? Any discussion on the report? Any objections to the report? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Recognize the Senator from District 12 has an amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the Senator's amendment.
Well, after that debate, this may seem a little weird, but I'd like to make this a bipartisan bill and add myself as a co-sponsor to this bill. That's all the amendment does.
I would say that that is a very friendly amendment coming from the only doctor here in the General Assembly, the Senate, and recognizing that I think, again, this is a very good bill that's meant to help people, and certainly if we can get it through and get it covered, I think we'll have a much healthier population. So, very friendly amendment.
All right. Any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 496 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 515, Senator Bidel, Health Services Cost Review Commission, Health Facilities, Jurisdiction, and Rate Setting, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 515 is amended, authorizes the Health Services Cost Review Commission to consider all reasonable costs incurred or expenditures made by a facility in connection with the operation of the facility, that's hospitals, including costs to employ or contract with physicians or other professional providers for which the facility does not receive corresponding offsetting professional revenue. The Commission, in coordination with the specified agency, must report to certain committees on efforts to collect and analyze specified data and develop and implement a policy to address the cost identified by the bill by June 1, 2027. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 adds the required reporting, authorizes rather than requires the Commission to consider the specified cost, and strikes changes to the jurisdiction of the Commission. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 515 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 742, Senator Gazzone, Maryland Medical Assistance Programs and Developmental Disabilities Administration, Home and Community-Based Services, Eligibility Determinations, Maryland Protecting People with Disabilities Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing Senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pardon me, colleagues. Senate Bill 742, as amended, establishes additional requirements for waivers administered by the Developmental Disabilities Administration and codifies existing federal mandates related to the waivers. The Department of Health is generally prohibited from procedurally disenrolling individuals from Medicaid or home and community-based services based on missing documentation. The department must retroactively reinstate certain recipients who are procedurally disenrolled, subject to federal approval. The department must reserve capacity in home and community-based services, waivers for recipients who lost eligibility under certain circumstances. Beginning January 1, 2027, MDH must submit quarterly reports to the General Assembly. Amendment 1 alters the preamble. Amendment 2 strikes language requiring the continuation of services until all due process rights are exhausted and a final determination is issued. Strikes a provision prohibiting placing an individual on a waiting list or requiring a new application if the disenrollment was the fault of the department. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 742 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 890, Senator Guile, Insurance Premium Receipts Tax Exemption of Captive Insurance Procured by Nonprofit Hospitals and Healthcare Systems, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize Senator, the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 890, as amended, requires a captive insurer of a nonprofit health system to pay a premium receipt tax of 3% of gross premiums on reinsurance purchased by the captive insurer. If the captive insurer does not pay the specified premium receipt tax, a nonprofit health system is required to. The bill establishes a penalty of 25% of the tax due and an additional 1% for each month that the payment is late. The bill also prohibits the Maryland Insurance Administration from charging or collecting a premium receipts tax subject to the Act that would have been otherwise payable prior to the effective date of the Act. There are 2 amendments. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 amends the bill as specified. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, recognize the senator from the 42nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a lot of questions about this bill. I'd rather discuss them offline, so to enable that conversation to occur, I move to lay the bill over under Rule 53.
Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. All right, let's go to number 30, report number 30, still with finance. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 707, Senator Reedy, Mental Health Law, Danger to the Life or Safety of the Individuals of Others, Definition, Right to Treatment, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 707, as amended, defines the term danger to the life or safety of the individual or of others for provisions of law regarding emergency evaluations of individuals with mental disorder and the involuntary admission of an individual with the mental disorder. The term means that as a result of the disorder, there is substantial risk based on recent and relevant conduct and in light of the individual's history that the individual will cause serious bodily harm to themselves or someone else or be unable to provide for their own basic needs to such a degree as to create a substantial risk of serious bodily harm, illness, or death in the near future. Amendment number 1, there are 2 amendments. The first is technical and adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 alters the definition as described above and requires the Behavioral Health Administration to submit a report to the General Assembly on the use of petitions for emergency evaluation. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 707 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 839, Senator Reedy, Medical Assistance Programs, Drug Dispensing, Cost of Dispensing Survey, and Fee-for-Service Professional Dispensing Fee, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor, the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 839, as amended, requires the Department of Health, beginning in 2026, to conduct an in-state cost of dispensing survey at least once every 3 years and to report the results of the survey to the General Assembly. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the provision requiring the department to adopt regulations altering the dispensing fee based on the results of the survey and establishes the required report, thereby getting rid of the fiscal note cost. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 839 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 870, Senator A. Washington, Maryland Department of Health, Adolescent Psychiatric Inpatient Beds Capacity in Prince George's County, and report, favorable, two amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill, as amended, requires the Department of Health to submit 2 reports to the General Assembly by December 1 of this year. The first report must examine the adolescent psychiatric inpatient bed capacity by county, which must be submitted each year until 2030. And the second report requires the department to, in consultation with specified entities, report on how to ensure the best possible outcomes for adolescents receiving inpatient psychiatric care and how to ensure that the correct services are provided. The First Amendment on here is technical. The Second Amendment strikes provisions of the bill related to the establishment of certain number of adolescent psychiatric inpatient beds. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 870 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 876, Senator Attar, Recovery Residence Certification Requirement, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 22nd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires that a recovery residence beginning June 1, 2027 be certified by a credentialing entity approved by the Department of Health before operating in the state. The bill also updates the reporting requirements for the credentialing entity such that it must submit an updated list of certified recovery residences to the department as necessary, and the department must maintain a list of each credentialing entity and certified recovery residents. These recovery residencies right now are voluntary for them to be certified. This bill requires that they are now certified. The Amendment 1 delays the requirement that a recovery residence must be certified from January 1 to June 1, 2027. There was no opposition in the committee, and I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 876 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. We have a layover calendar. No, but we have judicial proceedings, actually. Let's go to judicial proceedings, who's here. This is report number 2020. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 475, Senator Sidnor, Criminal Procedure, Evidence Protecting Artist Creative Expression, PACE Act, favorable.
Recognizing the Senator from Baltimore County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill prohibits the creative expression of a defendant or respondent from being admitted against the defendant or respondent in a criminal or juvenile proceeding unless the court makes a specified finding. The bill does not preclude the admission of creative expression in juvenile cases for the purposes of evaluating, recommending, or ordering the referral to a mental health services or diversion programs. There were no amendments. I move the committee floor report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 475 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 620, Senator Watson, Criminal Law, wearing, carrying, or transporting a handgun, prior convictions, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This bill expands the convictions that qualify a defendant for subsequent offender enhanced sentencing provisions for violations related to wearing, carrying, or transporting a handgun to include prior convictions from another state or federal military or Native American tribal court that, if committed in Maryland, would constitute a violation of Section 4-203, wearing, carrying, or transporting a handgun. Of the criminal law article. There are no committee amendments. I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 620 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 715, Washington County Senators, Washington County Juvenile Truancy Reduction Pilot Program, favorable.
All right, recognize Senator from District 1 is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 715. This bill authorizes the Circuit Administrative Judge of the Fourth Circuit to establish a truancy reduction pilot program in juvenile court in Washington County. There are no committee amendments. Therefore, Mr. President, I move the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 715 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 936, Senator West, Vehicle Laws, Bus Obstruction Monitoring Systems, and Bus Stop Zones, favorable, 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from the 42nd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 936 prohibits a person from stopping, standing, or parking a vehicle in a bus stop zone if a transit vehicle is present in the bus stop zone, unless the person either is authorized by the local jurisdiction in which the zone is located or is actively engaged in the loading or unloading of passengers and has activated the vehicle's hazard warning lights. These violations can be enforced by automated enforcement systems. I hereby move the adoption of the 2 amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 936 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. We do have one more Finance Committee. I missed this one. This is 31, calendar 31. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 412, Senator Augustine, Maryland Department of Health Community Forensic Aftercare Program established, favorable, 2 amendments.
Recognize the Senator from District 12 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 412, as amended, generally codifies the Community Forensic Aftercare Program within the Department of Health to monitor persons committed as not criminally responsible, or NCR, who are on conditional release, and individuals with mental illness or intellectual disability who are required to be monitored under statutory provisions pertaining to individuals found to be NCR or competent to stand trial. The bill also specifies new requirements for the program. It codifies the existing board consisting of licensed healthcare providers to make recommendations and decisions related to conditional release and out-of-state travel requests as specified. The department must also adopt regulations to carry out the bill. There are 2 amendments. The first amendment is technical. Amendment number 2 alters notice requirements related to when a forensic review board issues a recommendation to a court, authorizes certain authorized agents to attend forensic review board meetings virtually. It alters the frequency of meetings between persons monitored and the mental health team. And lastly, it delays implementation of the bill until October 2027. Move the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, recognize the bill. The floor leader has an amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
Yeah, so council pointed out that there's just a minor technical change to a word in the bill that was brought forward. So this is just a change law to procedure in the bill.
All right, Senator has moved the amendment. Technical amendment. Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 412 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, let's do this. Can we ring the bells, Madam Secretary? Let's get the third readers going. See if there are any have to be pulled back or not. Let's do a quorum call.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Let's go to third reading calendar number 6161. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 159, Senator A. Washington, Emergency Medical Services Vehicles, Ambulances, Required Services.
Senate Bill 159 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to
Mr. President.
change? Yes, I recognize the Senator from the 22nd has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm voting green on this bill because all 911 emergency calls throughout the state should be met with an EMS vehicle that is fully prepared to save a life. You know, when a parent calls 911 for a child or infant, EMS should not arrive missing the equipment needed to properly monitor that child on the way to the hospital. No family in a moment of panic and desperation should hear that an ambulance is not equipped for their baby. That is unacceptable. This bill changes that, where it allows for all of the EMS vehicles in the state of Maryland to have some equipment on there for neonatal care, for when a child is transported with the vehicle from the situation to the hospital. And I'm voting green for it on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the affirmative, Senate Bill 159 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 262, Senator Simon Eyre, Income Tax Subtraction Modification for Classroom Supplies Purchased by Teachers, Alteration.
Senate Bill 262 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 262 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 385, the President, Public Health Recommendations for Immunizations, Screening, Preventative Services, Pharmacist, Admin, and Required Health Insurance Coverage, the VAX Act.
Senate Bill 385 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 385 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 387, the President, Food Retailers and Third-Party Food Delivery Service Providers, Dynamic Pricing and Personal Data Protection from Predatory Pricing Act.
Senate Bill 387 is on third reading, final passage. Recognize the minority leader on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. The floor leader could just yield for a question, please. Forget who has this. You? Pam?
Chair of the committee?
You have this?
No?
You want to do it? No, I was going to ask the question. I can't talk.
Floor leader? Is it, Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And again, just to refresh everybody, I just wanted to make sure I fully, and the body fully understood what this bill did. It was significantly amended. And at first, it was looked to be for third-party delivery, you know, we had talked about that. We had talked about online retailers, and then the bill came in specifically to talk about retailers over, I think, 15,000 square feet. Just as it was amended, it was significantly narrowed down? Is that what it was? I remember there was one question that was asked about the timing, 24 hours, and
That
we
was
got rid
taken
of
out,
that,
yeah.
right?
Senator, I read it as becoming more broad because we add third-party food delivery service providers where that was not in the original bill.
So that became a little more broad, but the issue itself in the way that it could collect data, I think, was what was changed. It was based on AI at first, and it went into personal data could not be utilized.
Right, they can't use personal
That-
data.
Yeah, so that's the part we narrowed down.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. All right, thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. Any further discussion on the bill? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 387 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 825, Senator Hester, Public Safety Critical Infrastructure Protection.
Senate Bill 825 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anybody wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 825 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 957, Senator Guile, Education Career Ladder National Board Certification, Associated Salary Increases.
Senate Bill 957 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 957 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 980, Senator Salling, Property Tax Credit for Dwelling House of Disabled Veterans and Surviving Spouses, Alterations.
Senate Bill 980 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 980 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill. Oh, I'm sorry. That is it. Thank you. We're on 62 now. 62, calendar 62. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 389, the President, Land Use, Transit-Oriented Development Alterations, Maryland Transit and Housing Opportunity Act.
Senate Bill 389 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 389 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 420, Senator M. Washington, Public Institutions of Higher Education, Pregnant and Parenting Students Plan and Reporting.
Senate Bill 420 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 36 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 420 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 469, Senator Hayes, Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund, Affordability Program, and Industry Automobile Insurance Association Assessments.
Senate Bill 469 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 469 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 523, Senator M. Washington, Department of Natural Resources, Water Resources, Identification of Vernal Pools.
Senate Bill 523 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 44 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 523 have received a constitutional majority. Is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 529, Senator Harris, Southern Maryland Early College Teacher Pathway Program Work Group Establishment.
Senate Bill 529 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 44 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 529 have received a constitutional majority. Is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 597, Senator Hester, Higher Education Maryland Artificial Intelligence Partnership.
Senate Bill 597 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 597 have received a constitutional majority. Is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 607, Senator McCray, Income Tax Subtraction Modification for Public Safety Retirement Income Amount.
Senate Bill 607 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 44 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 607 have received a constitutional majority. Is declared passed. All right, let's go to 63, calendar 63. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 130, Senator Henson, Environment Water Individual Submeters.
Senate Bill 130 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 130 have received a constitutional majority. Is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 223, Chair Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee, Maryland Energy Administration, Jane E. Lawton Conservation Loan Program and Fund, Maryland Strategic Energy Investment Fund.
Senate Bill 223 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 223 have received a constitutional majority. Is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 417, Senator Lamb, Labor and Employment Mandatory Meetings on Religious or Political Matters, Employee Attendance and Participation, Maryland Worker Freedom Act.
Senate Bill 417 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Recognize Senator from 42nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wonder if the floor leader would stand so I could engage him in some questioning.
Sure.
So I'm looking at the bill itself to try to find out precisely who it covers. It says an employer may not discharge, discipline, or otherwise penalize an employee because the employee declines to attend, participate in, or listen to communications from the employer in an employer-sponsored meeting during which the employer communicates the opinion of the employer regarding religious matters or political matters. Correct?
Correct.
So this bill only says that employees can't be disciplined if they refuse to hear the employer's opinions on religious matters or political matters. In other words, the employer can communicate on any other topics to the employee, and the employee must listen to the employer, but not if the employer communicates the employer's views about religious matters or political matters. Is that how you interpret the bill?
Yes, but with just a clarification there. The employer can convey religious and political matters, but the employee cannot be disciplined if they choose not to listen to it.
Right. Choose not to attend, participate, or listen to the employer's views on political or religious matters, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But you can still, one could still request them to attend. One could still, send it over the overhead speakers in a place of employment, yes.
No, the bill says the employee can be disciplined for declining to attend a meeting at which the employer discusses his views or her views regarding religious matters or political
Right.
matters.
If it's a meeting, they cannot be disciplined for declining to attend.
Exactly. So you're aware this bill is the twin of a bill that was passed in California about a year ago, correct?
It is a little bit different than the bill that was passed in California.
But very similar. Are you aware that in California, that bill was challenged on the day it took effect, and the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of California issued a lengthy opinion along with an order enjoining the enforcement of this bill?
So that is different because the California bill dealt specifically with union activity. Our bill is more broad than just union activity. So
it's worse.
The claim that's
from a
matter
First
of
Amendment
opinion,
point of view, it's worse because it affects more people.
It affects broader topics than just union activity. So the claim was also under unfair labor practices, which is not the case in this bill that we're working with now. Our bill is more similar to wrongful termination suits, which the state can regulate as an unfair labor practice. So this is different than the California bill that was really just regulating union activity. This is much broader than that.
Well, the U.S. District Court in California rendered its decision finding this bill unconstitutional based on First Amendment issues, did it not?
They found the California bill unconstitutional, but again, that is very different than what this bill does, which is broader than just union-specific activities. It's pertaining to political or religious.
Well, we're not talking about union. We're talking about a bill which specifically impacts the employer's ability to communicate his views on religious and political issues. That's what this bill's about. We just ascertained that.
This bill does not prevent an employer and their ability for free speech. This only prevents an individual employee from being punished if they choose not to sit through the sessions that are directly relating to political and religious activities. And so just like the state can regulate whether someone has been wrongfully terminated or for health and safety reasons at a workplace, we can pass legislation to have certain stipulations and requirements of those types of activities at the workplace. This is in line with that. This is not specific for union activity.
This bill is not about workplace conditions. This bill is about speech, and the speech in particular is political speech and religious speech. So let me read you a short portion of the opinion, quite lengthy, a 35-page opinion issued in California. It said the government may not regulate speech based on hostility or favoritism toward the underlying message expressed. The California statute would prohibit an employer from taking an adverse action against an employee who refused to receive mandatory employer communications based solely on the type of speech in which an employer engaged. And more than that, the inquiry would focus on whether the speech was related to certain political or religious matters. So the California statute was ruled unconstitutional because the employer was not permitted to require the employees to hear his views or her views on political or religious matters. Don't you agree with that?
I think that is very different than what we are considering here in this piece of legislation. And again, that California law was specific to union activity. This is much broader in that it is related to any political or religious information that's being conveyed to employees. So I would posit that that ruling does not apply in this circumstance.
Once again, let me remind you what this bill specifically says is an employer may not discharge, discipline, or otherwise penalize an employee who declines to attend, participate in, or listen to communications from the employer about religious matters or political matters. It seems to me to be absolutely on all fours with the companion statute which was passed in California. Let me go on and read one other section from the opinion. It said, here the California statute involves political and religious speech, which the statute purports to do as well. Political speech in particular is at the core of the First Amendment. Whatever differences may exist about interpretations of the First Amendment, there's practically universal agreement that a major purpose of that amendment was to protect the free discussion of governmental affairs. Religious speech also has been recognized as a matter of public concern protected under the First Amendment. Do you agree with those statements?
I agree with the First Amendment. This bill does not curtail First Amendment rights of the employers. All it says is that employees may not be punished for choosing not to attend these types of captive audience sessions where a employer, were it not for this to pass, could require an employee to attend. And if they choose not to attend, an employee could be compelled to attend a session where the owner of the business may have a friend who's running for office. And they may be required to sit through that session because the employer or the CEO decides that they want to bring this person in.
Now, are you aware that
were to pass, the employee could choose not to attend that type of a captive audience session, and they could not be punished. So we're not regulating free speech here. We are just regulating the work environment, any disciplinary actions that could come from an employee that chooses not to attend.
And the relevant language of the California statute was almost identical to this one. An Attorney General's opinion was issued, I have a copy of it here, on March 23rd. Today is March 23rd, correct?
Yes.
So it came out this morning. Have you seen a copy of this opinion about this bill?
I have not seen what came out this morning.
All right. The opinion, it states, if this bill passes, in my view, there is a strong possibility the state will be sued. If so, there is a significant risk that the law could be found to be unconstitutional under the Free Speech Clause of the First Amendment and under the Supremacy Clause due to preemption. And then on the second page, the Attorney General states, overall, the content-based nature of this was the House bill, but it's an identical bill, raises the biggest concern. The bill would not allow employers engaging in political or religious speech to take certain personnel actions that they are otherwise permitted to do if speaking on different matters. This could chill core protected speech. If a court determines the bill regulates speech, as the California court did, there is a significant chance a court would find it unconstitutional on its face because it is content-based. Do you disagree with the Attorney General on this?
I disagree with that because of a component that you added right there at the end, that you included right there at the end. Sorry, that was included right there at the end, which said that if this were to curtail the employer's ability to have free speech, it does not. This is not regulating the employer's ability to have a right to free speech. This is only regulating the ability of an employee to be disciplined if they choose not to. It is a workplace regulation. It's a workplace condition. This would otherwise create a hostile work environment. And so we as a state have regulated workplace conditions.
Thank you for answering my questions. Mr. President, I intend to put up a negative vote on this bill. I simply cannot vote for any bill which I believe will be unconstitutional. I took an oath 4 years ago to support the U.S. Constitution and the Maryland Constitution, and I've been consistent for these past 4 years in refusing to vote in favor of any bill which is unconstitutional. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the bill, let's go to Senator from the 26th, then we'll go back and forth.
Fully to yield.
Senator, may proceed.
Make sure I have this right.
Sure.
If I call my staff to the office and I say, I want to talk to you about the Bible, if they simply say no, they don't have to hear it. That does not infringe on my speech, even if they left the room and it was empty and I still wanted to talk about it, right? That does not infringe, and that's all the bill does. It says if they work for me, and I call them into my office, and I want to talk about the Bible, or I want to talk about the campaign of somebody else, they just don't have to listen, right? That does not infringe on my right to say it to whoever wants to hear it. Is that correct?
Correct. And if they choose not to listen, if this were enacted, then it just
Right.
means that you cannot take disciplinary
That's
actions
correct.
against them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. All right, we'll go to Minority Whip, followed by a Senator from the 23rd.
Mr. President, I wonder if I could ask my friend from the Finance Committee, the floor leader, to yield, because I'm curious about some of the questioning has made me think about this a little bit more. The floor statements here and the answers to the questions talked a little bit about the California bill as being different, but I'm looking at the California bill, Senate Bill 399, and it's basically, it looks very similar. Obviously, their bills don't look exactly like ours, but it talks about religious, it's California Worker Freedom from Employer Intimidation Act is what the bill is called, and I'm looking through the language, and it's very similar in discussing what employers and employees can and cannot do as far as mandatory meetings. It's outside of the union context. Obviously, that's part of it. So I would suggest that's precisely what's being held up in California, is that this is too broad because of the speech issues it raises. I don't know if the floor leader would have any comment on that or reply to that. I'm looking at the bill.
So just to be clear, that is a non-binding court decision in California, right? And so as states come up and pass legislation on their own, they work their way through the courts. That is a decision out of the California courts that is non-binding to here. But I do want to point out that the California case was very specific to union picketers. It was related to union activities. And so this bill is not singling out union activities on its own, and it is broader than what was brought up in the California case.
Well, I mean, looking at the bill, and I understand you probably don't have the bill from California in front of you. It says an employer, part of the bill, an employer except as provided in subsections G and H shall not subject or threaten to subject an employee to discharge, discrimination, or retaliation because the employee declines to attend an employer-sponsored meeting or affirmatively declines to participate in or listen to any communications with the employer about religious or political matters. An employee who is working at the time of the meeting elects not to attend the meeting shall continue to be paid. I mean, it's going through, it just looks very much like the same bill. And you're saying it's a non-binding court decision. I just think it would be incredibly unwise to pass something this broad. Let me ask this, because as I'm looking at some of the research I've found on this, I've got an Attorney General letter which was referenced that was requested by a member of the House, but I have a copy here, and there's concern about this being preempted. HB 45 would be preempted from the NLRA and would fall within the exclusive jurisdiction of the National Labor Relations Board to the extent it purports to prohibit employers from requiring. I'm reading through the letter. I'm sorry, that's probably not the reference that I was looking for. I guess my question is, if we're having these meetings, if we're banning a meeting on the subject of political, religion, but if someone has a mandatory meeting and then those issues are discussed in a conversational way, that it comes up, particularly if you're having meetings as a local government or a nonprofit that's involved in advocacy or something like that, you're going to have these kind of topics come up. Where do we draw the line when an employee says, I'm not going to go to that meeting because they may talk about this or it may come up? Is there a protection for an employer that says, no, you have to come to this meeting, where we're not just having the employee in their judgment say, well, I think this subject's going to come up?
What this bill does is protect employees from having to sit through those meetings. The employer, as you point out, can still have these meetings. It just means that the employee has a choice whether to attend or not. They have a right to refrain from listening to speech and being compelled to listen to it. What this bill protects is the employer from being disciplined for not attending. States have had the ability to maintain and regulate employee and employer relationships. We have our own minimum wage laws, as we're all aware of. We have child labor regulations. We have wrongful termination protections in place. We have laws pertaining to health and safety. This would be similar and falls under that scope for states to be able to regulate the workplace and environment and protections that are in place for workers. Employers can still have those sessions. They can talk about whatever they would like. They can hold those sessions. They just cannot have an employee disciplined if the worker chooses not to attend.
Okay. And we have some protections that were in the bill, I think from last year, looking at local governments, because I was curious about that. The governmental unit can require and mandate that an employee attend a training or attend a meeting that does discuss political matters, provided that it's germane to their job. I mean, we have that protection of that's in the bill, correct?
Correct. There are exceptions in place that if it is directly, germane to their job, then they can be required to attend. So if you work government affairs for, an employer, then there are exemptions in place for those individuals. They would still have to attend.
If you work for the town of pick some smaller town in Maryland, and they want to have a meeting, and all you're involved with is the parks. You help clean the parks and work and help the streets or whatever you might do for the town. You're the handyman or handy lady. But they want you to understand what regulations are coming from the state government about thus and so. That's all allowed under this bill. That's not going to be an issue.
That is not an issue.
Okay. And then finally, is there any protection in the bill, and this question may have been raised, but I'm trying to be sure the answer is clear. Are there any protections in this bill for maybe a larger company that starts to have people file these kinds of complaints multiple times in multiple ways without a lot of evidence, but as a way to tie a particular company up in court? And I'm not thinking of a particular company, honestly. It's just an example that was given to me by some people, and I'm just curious because we don't want malicious compliance or malicious prosecution. So are there protections if someone continues to file the same or similar complaint over and over again?
The enforcement mechanism here is being handled by the Maryland Department of Labor and their commissioner, and so that would be determined by the department. That is not the intent, obviously, of this bill.
Sure.
For frivolous complaints to be brought forward to the department repeatedly.
Okay, thank you. Mr. President, I'm going to be voting against this bill, and I think it's so important that some of the issues raised, we don't want anybody being targeted and saying you have to attend a prayer service on the company time, or that's certainly a violation of someone's rights to freedom of religion. But at the same time, when we draw something so broadly that it could say you don't have to attend a meeting because any meeting that has like a political or even a somewhat, even using the word religious, there's a lot of different ways that could be broadly interpreted. I think we start to again have a situation where the state, we've talked a lot about our economic issues, our disadvantage that we have with some other states, how we're losing revenue, losing investment to other states. This is another thing where we're just adding another regulation, trying to sort of strain at a gnat because there's probably some specific things that have happened where people feel like they would like to be able to object to attending meetings. It's not, we keep adding on more and more on job creators. We keep adding more and more regulations, more opportunities for people to find a way to get something out of the people that employ them. And we have incredibly strong protections in this state for workers. This is going, I think, much broader than I think we're realizing here on the floor today. So I will be voting no on this bill.
All right, we're going to go to Senator from the 23rd on the bill.
May I ask the floor leader a couple questions?
Floor leader yield for a question. Senator may proceed.
Sure. Thank you. This bill, of course, excludes military involvement, right?
Excludes military involvement.
Let me ask it another way.
Yeah.
In the military, you have a commander.
Mm-hmm.
If a commander calls an all-hands meeting, there's a reasonable expectation that all folks under his or her command will be there. You agree?
That's correct, but I guess what I would say here is that they would not be talking about political or religious matters.
So I want to bifurcate the religious piece from the political piece, because for some reason we keep putting the religious piece in there to obfuscate the real issue that we're trying to get at. In a climate today where political decisions can be made that can wipe out entire industries or significantly impact employees, you're telling an employer who employs a group of employees, who has a reasonable expectation that every employee under his or her watch supports the mission statement of that company. And if they call an all-hands meeting because something relevant politically is happening that may cause the business to suffer, you're saying that they don't have a reasonable expectation that everybody under their authority should have to be there, correct?
Everyone would have to be there if it's directly related to the job that they're doing, if it's related to the work that they're doing for that employer. The bill specifically defines political matters as those related to elections for political office, political parties, or proposals to change legislation, regulations, or public policy. It's only in those instances would this fall under the purview of the bill. So if they're there to talk about how we as a business can continue to sustain this business and make sure that we can bring more business in to help our bottom line, that is totally permissible.
But a lot of these decisions have a political context associated with them, especially today. When we're talking AI, when we're talking about manufacturing, there are many, many jobs that can be totally wiped out. And if an employer, say for example, whose family has been in this business for generations, is trying to hold on to this business and the employees, and says, I want every employee to come because we're going to talk something related to the political events that are occurring and who's causing those events to happen, you're saying that those employees do not have to be there, correct?
They can be there to be informed about the political events that are occurring, but how this is defined on page 2 is proposals to change public policy. If they're there to ask them to advocate to the legislature, to their council, to another body for a change in that policy, that's where this falls under the purview of the bill.
So
if they're just there to inform them that this is what's going on, these are the environments, this has been in the news, this might affect our business, that's okay.
And so when an employer sees something happen and supports their union employees going out on the picket line to let those elected folks in office know where they stand on certain political divisions, that's okay, right?
Could you repeat that question again?
I think you've answered my question. Thank you very much.
All right, recognized senator from the 19th district.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I think what we've been hearing stretches the imagination just a little bit when our friend, the minority whip, speculates that perhaps business may choose not to locate in Maryland if they do not have the ability to try to coerce employees into voting for certain elected officials or being forced to listen to certain religious rhetoric. The bill that is before us simply provides that an employer may not punish an employee who chooses to not sit through a meeting at their place of employment where the employer is sharing with them the employer's perspective on who it is this employee should be supporting for elected office or what their personal religious beliefs should be. I appreciate my friend from Baltimore County who referenced what he stated, and I think it was done mistakenly, as a letter of opinion from the Attorney General's office. He is welcome to correct me if I'm mistaken, but I believe it was a letter of advice. There is a significant difference between a letter of advice and a letter of opinion. A letter of advice has no legal authority whatsoever. It is just that, advice as to what may or may not happen. And for those of you who are familiar with these letters of advice, they almost universally include language that says the bill before us is not clearly unconstitutional. That's their catch-all, and it's in almost every letter of advice. So I will be putting up a green vote on this bill to do what many other states have done. And my understanding is, and bear with me one moment, Mr. President, I believe Minnesota, Connecticut, Illinois, Oregon, Alaska, Hawaii, Maine, Washington, New Jersey, New York, and Vermont all have similar laws in place. So I am not in fear of what a lower court has found in the state of California. I will be putting up a green vote because it's the right thing to do for the people in this state who want to have a job but not be coerced at their place of employment to do something that they shouldn't have to do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, recognize Senator from the 38th District.
Thank you. If the floor leader would rise. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to share, we talk about Maryland employers. These are Maryland's job creators. And if you talk to our job creators in your district, they want to retain and keep their employees for the long haul. There's a workforce shortage in every major industry across the board. The job creators I know are doing what they can to have a positive environment with their employees so they'll stay for the long haul. And by the way, and I look at some of the major employers in my district, like Sandy Angelo Fitzgerald at Pohanka, who pays it forward. These are people that care about their employees. So when we do something like this, it sends a negative message to our job creators across the board. We have the governor and others saying that Maryland is open for business. But when we talk about this bill on top of our taxes and regulations, it's just one more cut. And I guess my question to the floor leader is, when you had the testimony from the Maryland Chamber of Commerce and from the other job creators, was there any discussion on the, I think, unintended consequences, which would be that these job creators fear with the litigation, the uncertainty, any discussion of how it could have the unintended consequence of being a negative for Maryland's job creators?
Thank you. I don't think this will be a negative for Maryland job creators. The intention here is to actually support businesses, to be able to allow their workers to focus on the tasks at hand, to not be distracted by other political or religiously affiliated sessions that they may be compelled to come to. Just to be clear, as my colleague from Montgomery County stated, the bill does not prohibit them from hosting these sessions. Any employer, any CEO, any business owner or job creator that wants to have these sessions can still host these sessions. All it says is that the employee can choose not to attend, and if they choose not to attend anything that's politically or religiously affiliated material, then they cannot be disciplined for that, just like we hold certain workplace regulations in place.
I appreciate that response, but when you pass a bill like this, you factor in all kinds of legal uncertainty for our job creators, and I think that we should also factor in that impact on our job creators. I'll be voting no on SB 417.
All right. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, we'll go to the senator from the 23rd on the bill.
Yes. One last question for the bill's sponsor.
Senator may proceed.
And
Sure.
so, when we say political matters, I don't know why we always go right to the extremes, who we're going to vote for in an election and this and that. Political matters, the way I look at it, is if the president says he's going to dismantle the Department of Education, and you work in the Department of Education and you call an all-hands meeting, is that political or a legislative conversation? And it gets fuzzy right there. Is it political or legislative? And so, political matters, to me, are not just who to vote for and who you're going to support. These are things that have the nexus as a result of a political decision that could impact the workplace that an employer may or may not choose to discuss with their employees. It's quite simple. And whether or not it is in line with their vision and mission statement. And I say this because I'm a military guy. And if I'm a commander and I call an all-hands meeting and you don't show up, it's insubordination, period. Because I have a reasonable expectation that you are going to be there to support the mission. Now, I understand what the bill's sponsor is trying to do. My only question is, why have you added the religious component with the political matters component? That's my only question.
So I think we, as a state, believe that we should be able to protect individuals' religious freedoms as well, that they should not be compelled to have to sit through a session that the employer or their boss feels like they want to have specifically about religious matters, that you shouldn't be disciplined just because you choose not to attend your employees' religiously affiliated meetings at work that have nothing to do with the task at hand or what you might be doing at the workplace. To address the other piece on the political matters, the employer can have and can, number one, can still host any session they want to, right? We're not restricting the employer's ability for free speech at all. This only addresses the ability of the employer to punish those employees. Number two, they can have these sessions to inform their employees, and particularly if it still is directly pertinent to the job that they're doing, they can still compel them to attend. Like I gave in the example earlier, if you work in government affairs for an organization, you could be compelled to attend because it is directly relevant to the work that you do for that employer. But also, and I think this last part is operative here too, is that you may not be, the employer cannot be asking that employee to advocate to another body, to the legislature, to their county council for a change. That's different, right? So just informing them of, said change that might be coming down because of a policy change or because of something that's happening in the news or a new development about a certain type of technology, that's all okay. But where it draws the line is that when you're asking for your employee to advocate, to take another action, that's where this protection comes into place.
All right, on the bill, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 417 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 532, Senator Kagan, Higher Education Institutions Over-the-Counter Contraception, Access, and Reporting.
Senate Bill 532 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 532 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 599, Senator Hester, On-Farm Organic Diversion and Recycling Grant Program, established.
Senate Bill 599 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 599 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 612, Talbot County Senators, Talbot County Public Schools, School Schedule Options.
Senate Bill 612 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 612, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 651, Senator Henson, Real Property Transfer on Death Deed Establishment.
Senate Bill 651 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 651 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 672, Senator A. Washington, Prince George's County, expanding access to early childhood education and child care.
Senate Bill 672 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 672 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 879, Senator Attar, Baltimore City Natural Resources Archery Hunting Safety Zones.
Senate Bill 879 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 879 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 904, Senator Zucker, Education, Public Schools, Professional Development.
Senate Bill 904 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 904 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 968, Senator Gallion, Education, School Bus Fire Safety Standards.
Senate Bill 968 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 41 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 968 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Recognize Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to change SB 420 from a nay to a yay, please. Thank you.
Nay to a yay. Do we have the vote switched? All right. Senator, any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. 420, nay to yay.
Nay to yay, 420. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, I should have stuck with what I had before. 420, nay to yay.
Nay to yay. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Let's
Mr.
go.
President,
Yes.
may I change
Senator
my vote
Thursday.
also from
On
nay
4,
to- yeah, nay to
420?
yay. Yes,
Any
please.
objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Let's go to third reading calendar 65. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 10, Senator A. Washington, State Highway Administration Speed Monitoring Systems Application Approval.
Senate Bill 10 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 10 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 187, Senator M. Washington, Correctional Services Comprehensive Rehabilitated Reentry Services, Female Incarcerated Individuals. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 187 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 187 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 335, Senator Love, Landlord and Tenant Discrimination in Housing for Income-Based Housing Subsidies and Positive Rental History Reporting.
Senate Bill 335 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 335 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 388, the President, Economic Development, Delivering Economic Competitiveness and Advancing Developmental Efforts, Decade Act.
Senate Bill 388, it's on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 388, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 465, Senator James, Criminal Procedure, Admission of Out-of-Court Statements, Assault in the Second Degree.
Senate Bill 465 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 38 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 465, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 487, Senator Henson, Motor Vehicles, Speed Monitoring Systems, Safety Corridors, Vulnerable Road User Protection Act of 2026.
Senate Bill 487 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 487 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 559, Senator Bailey, Natural Resources, Recreational Fishery Data Collection Program established.
Senate Bill 559 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 559 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 610, Senator Mouch, Natural Resources Invasive Blue Catfish Pilot Program alterations. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 610 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 610 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 632, Senator West, State Government, State Elected Officials, Protection of Personal Information.
Senate Bill 632 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 632 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We'll go to, Senator from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. For Senate Bill 187, can I change my vote from nay to yea?
Nay to yea. Senator, I have a vote change card. If the pages could please deliver one. We will, once received, any objections? Without objections, so ordered. Senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 968 in the green.
960 in the green. Any objections? Without objections, so ordered. Senator from the 45th.
Senate Bill 465 in the green.
465.
Yep.
465 in the green. Any objections? Without objections, so ordered. Senator 37th.
Senate Bill 420 from red to green.
420, red to green. Any objections? Without objections, so ordered. Senator from District 5.
Senate Bill 10, green to red.
10, green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Let's go to 66. 66. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 689, Senator McKay, creation of a division of returning citizens and expanded reentry services, requirement alterations and extension of repeated deadlines, Bryce Law.
Senate Bill 689 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 689 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 807, Senator Bailey, Alcoholic Beverages Class 8 Farm Brewery Licenses.
Senate Bill 807 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 807 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 810, Senator King, Immigration Enforcement Expanding Sensitive Locations Notification and Guidance, Maryland Values Act of 2026. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 810 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote.
Mr. President.
Yes, recognizing the senator from District 5 is 2 minutes explaining the vote.
I'm just explaining the vote here. We had a long debate on this Friday night, and I just think it's important to note we already don't have immigration enforcement happening in schools and a lot of the things that are mentioned in this bill. But this bill does add in bus stops, including things that are out in the public space. And I think it's a dangerous thing to be saying we're going to be it's a dangerous message to send, because it's not going to stop enforcement from happening at these places. We can't tell the federal law enforcement that they can't be on a sidewalk and enforcing the law. There are bus stops that are not kids' bus stops, that are bus stops that are stops for regular buses, and there's areas in neighborhoods that are colloquially a bus stop by a stop sign for children, but we can't, they're not going to stop federal law enforcement from engaging in immigration enforcement right near that stop sign, because if that happened to have somebody that they're looking for, criminal illegal immigrants who have committed crimes, generally speaking, is who is being still to this day is the most likely person that's being deported, that's being arrested and deported. This is a bill that is sending the wrong message, and it's another example of just overreach on our part to try to send a political message, and I don't think it's correct. My vote is no.
All right.
Mr. President.
Yes, recognize the Senator.
Yeah, I just want to explain my vote. I represent the community where Kilmar Obrega Garcia lived, worked, and with his family. And I can tell you, in the communities I represent, people are a hell of a lot more afraid of ICE than they're afraid of immigrants. The fact of the matter is that most immigrants in our community, most, overwhelming, are law-abiding, hard-working, God-loving people. And so the idea that we want to restrict the ability of ICE to do what it did in Minneapolis, including killing American citizens, everything we can do to protect our people from that overreach, I think we need to do, and that's why this is a good bill, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, recognize the Senator from the 37th District has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I vote no on this, not in an effort to do anything to undermine immigrants. Immigrants are held up. They are an important part. Immigrants are highly valued. I vote no on this because it isn't helping immigrants. It's taking one step further towards that sanctuary state status. This is a really emotional thing. It's torn the chamber apart, some of the debate, and I think that, you know, when you see a red vote, you think somehow you're not supporting immigrants. This vote to me is not about whether we're helping or hurting the immigrant community. It's about the laws of Maryland and how Maryland's treating different laws with this fight between the federal government, the Fed, the federal governments, and state governments. So I just want to make that clear about my no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the Majority Leader. 2 minutes to explain your vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill really is about my community. I would say at this point, the majority of the residents in my community right now are immigrants. They're afraid to come out of their doors. They don't come out to community meetings. They go to the grocery store and get home as fast as they can and are always worried about ICE being outside the grocery store. And the kids are constantly worried when they go to school that, number one, they're going to come home and their parents won't be there because they've been taken away. And that has happened in my community, where they have left children home and taken the parents away. But my community lives in fear of ICE, and especially for the children, it is just the wrong thing to have happen to them. They've done nothing to deserve the treatment that they're getting. So I am absolutely in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, if there is no further senators who wish to explain their vote, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 810 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 811, Senator Hayes, real property, new home sales, entry of final sale price, and multiple listing service.
Senate Bill 811 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 39 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 811 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 844, the President Annual Corrective Bill. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 844 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 844, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 866, Senator A. Washington, Public Health Chain Restaurants Disclosure and Notice to Customers of Sodium and Added Sugars.
All right, it's Senate Bill 866 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 31 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 866, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 877, Senator Attar, Baltimore City Stop Sign Monitoring Systems Pilot Program, 41st Legislative District.
Senate Bill 877 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 36 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 877 not received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 937, Senator Henson, Landlord and Tenant Residential Leases Prospective Tenant Criminal History Records Check, Maryland Fair Chance Housing Act.
Senate Bill 937 is on third reading. Recognize Minority Whip on the bill.
Mr. President, I wonder if I could ask the sponsor or the floor leader, but I'm assuming it's the sponsor, to yield for a question on this bill.
All right, floor leader yield for a question. Senator may proceed.
Oh, I know. Thank you so much. Just curious, we didn't discuss this much on third reader, and so my question and some of the concerns that have come my way from folks, does this deal with all landlords, or is it only for like a certain number of units?
It deals with large landlords and then properties that are not owner occupied.
So every rental except for if someone lives there and is renting out a part of it, correct?
No, in the bill, large landlords are defined as those with 4 or more units.
Okay, 4 or more. Does it, no matter whether they're using property management or not, it's 4 or more?
That's correct.
Okay.
Pardon me, it is 5 or more.
5 or more. No, it's fine. 5 or more. More than 4. Very good. So the, as I understand it, and I was reading through the bill, but it's been amended, there are a number of charges that now you would not be able to ask as a landlord or as a property manager. You would not be able to ask on the front end before making a conditional offer for residency?
That's correct.
Is there some concern, or how would we assuage the concern, number one, that you might be leading somebody down a path where they're going to apply, but then the bill, as far as I read it, but you can tell me please tell me if I'm wrong, you could still deny someone for a criminal history for some of these things, but you wouldn't be able to just deny them right away. So is it a concern? I know that, for example, people who we've had this discussion with a number of people who maybe only rent out 1 or 2 properties, which aren't affected by the bill, but you try to be nice to people so they don't pay a $30 application fee if it's like, we don't want dogs, or we don't want whatever. You try to be sure people know that just on the upfront. Would there be a concern, or how we deal with the concern of someone who goes through this process now, they pay some sort of application fee, and now they've applied, but now their criminal history does come up, and they want to be the person in question, the landlord in question, wants to deny them. What do we deal with that any in the bill?
The bill does have a notice provision, and it does also have a mechanism where if people feel like they have wrongfully been denied, they would have an opportunity for redress under those circumstances as well. But I think what you're getting at is it's a 2-step process. There is the original conditional offer that's made, but there are certain offenses that could automatically be screened out, where the landlord could say, I simply could use these offenses to say I don't want to extend an offer of housing. But then after those offenses, there's the second set of offenses. So what the goal is that if a person is credit worthy, if they have enough income, if they've been on their job long enough, it gets them to that second step before the landlord sees those other criminal offenses where they then might still deny housing, but it gives them the opportunity. It's simply as the bill states, it gives them a fair chance at housing.
But does it give them a fair chance if you're just going to be denied in the second step?
So there's the two-step process. There are some where the landlord could deny at the outset, and then for the second step, it's the felonies with the 5-year look back. So the landlord would have the opportunity to look at all felonies. But what it gives the landlord is the valuable opportunity to look at that tenant and evaluate them before just initially denying them. If the landlord would have otherwise perhaps looked at the tenant's charges and said, I'll just deny housing. But now the landlord would go through the process of screening them for credit worthiness, for income worthiness, checking their references, doing all the things that a landlord does to vet a tenant. Then, if the landlord then looks at the criminal record and finds that person has committed a felony, the landlord then has a choice to make. They could say, I see that person committed a felony within 5 years, but that person also has enough income. That person has been on their job for long enough. That person has the opportunities that they've taken advantage of to make sure they're worthy in every other way. So what we're hoping is that once landlords are empowered with a full set of information, that they will extend housing on more opportunities.
Thank you for the answers on those. Generally, I'm looking at the bill. Don't mean to have my back to you. Generally speaking, can you give a summary of what felonies are and what crimes are exclusionary at the beginning now versus which ones are in that second tier?
Certainly. That's on the bill, on the reprint of it when you're looking at the amendments that are adopted into it. Let's go to page 3.
Okay, 3. I was
So
further
the
down.
landlord may deny housing at the outset if the person has ever been convicted of a sexual offense under Title III, if the person has been convicted of child pornography under Title 11-207, and then within the last 10 years, if the person has been convicted of murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, human trafficking, or if this is a federally subsidized property, any of the methamphetamine offenses. The landlord can deny housing from the very beginning. So if you have any of those hot button issues, the landlord can, on the face of the application, reject the applicant without ever seeing if that person has enough income, has a credit worthiness. They don't have to go a single step further. They can initially say, that's it for me. And then what happens in the second step is if a person doesn't have any of those offenses but does have a criminal record, the provisions for the landlord is they may look at any felony offenses within the last 5 years.
And that's in the second step.
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, interesting. If you've been convicted for human trafficking 11 years ago, we can't exclude you from renting one of our apartments. Is that the way this would be if we pass this bill?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. President, I really appreciate the answers because I was trying to understand the way this breaks down. Mr. President, I continue to struggle with, we keep coming in every session and adding new things that landlords are now responsible for or forbidden to do. In this case, we're actually got folks who, most landlords really, as they try to run their business, they want folks who are going to be stable and pay the rent. I mean, that's what they want, and hopefully hopefully take care of the place. But criminal checks are really important, and it's not just about the one person who has committed criminal acts. Many people who've committed a criminal offense, certainly we want people to have second chances. But there's also the landlord has a responsibility to the other people that may be living in an apartment complex or are in the neighborhood. And they have to bear all of that liability themselves as a landlord, they or whatever company they've set up. And so this is another thing where we're making it harder to offer properties for rent in a time when we all have basically agreed there's a housing crisis. It's another thing that is just being put on top, and I'm really concerned about some of the safety here. I'm glad you can at least exclude people, for sexual offenses, child pornography, but I'm not particularly comforted by the idea that, oh, nope, as long as you haven't if you've committed a first-degree murder in the last decade, you can't, but otherwise, we're going. I mean, it's just, to me, this is not something we ought to be doing right now. I think it'd be great if we had a little bit of speaking of that bill earlier about some of the labor issues relative to public meetings about religious and political topics. Maybe we could have like a year or two where we don't keep adding more and more requirements, restrictions, and punishments on people who employ people or people who offer properties for the community, for people in the community to rent. I think that would be a smart move for us as a body. My vote will be no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, yes, recognize the bill sponsors on the bill.
Mr. President, thank you. Colleagues, this bill is another layer in the great work that this body has done, Mr. President, in the area of public safety. If safety is truly our #1 concern, making sure that we are breaking the cycle of recidivism is paramount to public safety. And making sure that people have a decent place to live is an important feature in that. All of the persons that have prior criminal convictions have to live somewhere. We simply cannot discard people and throw them away as a society. And let me tell you what happens if you do. Those people are much more prone to continue to commit crimes. And what we've seen in the great gains that we've made in public safety across this state, a part of that, Mr. President, is respecting the dignity of those individuals and making sure that small things like a fair chance in housing are a reality for them. I want to point out that this bill doesn't create any opportunities that a person hasn't worked very, very hard for. A person would still have to be credit worthy. A person would still have to have enough income to qualify. A person would still have to have references that were checked. A person would still have to be eligible and the best qualified candidate for that housing in every single way in order to be the person that's selected to live in that community. So if a person has turned their life around and done all of those things, I think that this bill gives them exactly what the title says, and that's simply a fair chance at housing, and that's why I'll be voting green. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the bill, if there's no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 937 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 984, Senator Smith, Correctional Services Private Detention Facilities Zoning Requirement. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 984 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 984 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to Special Order Calendar 55. 55. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 165, Senator Brooks, Environment On-Site Wastewater Systems Requirement for Inspection and Pumping Services and Implementation Dates. Question is the adoption of the amendment offered from the floor by Senator Hershey.
Question is on the floor amendment. Recognize the minority leader, maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to withdraw the floor amendment if I could.
All right, Senator has withdrawn the amendment, so ordered. Yep.
Thank you. I do not have the new amendment yet, and being that this was not a departmental bill, we're still trying to have some conversation about it. Can we just special order till the afternoon session?
Let's check. Are there any objections from the committee on special ordering to the second session today?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes to
the special order.
Okay. All right. No objection from the committee. Any objections from the floor? Without objection, the special order, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time at the next session today. All right. We have one last to do today. Special Order 56. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 626, Senator Lamb, Certificates of Birth, License, Identification Cards, Sex Designation, Birth Certificate Modernization Act. Question is the adoption of the favorable report.
All right, question is on the favorable report. Recognize the bill sponsor.
We have an amendment to offer based on the floor debate that occurred on Friday, but I know this is actually on the adoption of the favorable committee report, so would ask that we adopt this report and then take up amendments after this.
All right, sounds like amendments are coming. Any objection to the favorable report? Without objection, the favorable report is adopted. The senator has an amendment. Recognize the senator from District 1 has an amendment?
Yes,
oh, wait,
I do.
I'm sorry. Let's do senator from District 12. Sponsor has an amendment, and then looks like there are a couple amendments. Pages will collect and distribute the bill sponsor's amendment. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this amendment will, number one, require that so there are two provisions in this amendment. The amendment restores current state statute as it pertains to minors and will require that there be a provider note for any minor's change of birth certificate. That is current statute, so it restores current statute. It also clarifies the circumstances of which there might be perjury when an affidavit is filled out for an adult. So the adult would still be permitted to be able to complete an affidavit under penalty of perjury to request a new birth certificate. That's the amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Recognize, is this a sponsor amendment, not a committee? Okay. Recognize the senator from the 30th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. A question about the amendment for the floor leader.
Sure.
Senator may proceed.
I want to make sure I understand the changes that are made for minors. Under the amendment, and I don't have a copy that interlineates it into the bill, does it require both parents to make consent for minors, or does it strip out the changes for minors altogether?
It does not touch any part of the statute as it pertains to minors.
What does that mean?
Keeps the current posture for minors.
Under the current posture for minors, are both parents required to offer consent, or is it one parent may offer the designation?
It's just one, but there is a requirement for a provider to sign off on that.
Okay. And then the penalty of perjury section that's listed, the material statement of fact, that's the crux of a perjury case. And the amendment to the bill, the material fact that would be attested to, it's no longer the facts that are in the original version of the bill. The material fact there is not submitted for a fraudulent or unlawful purpose. Is that the new fact?
Correct. That you are attesting to the fact that you're not signing this affidavit for an unlawful or fraudulent purpose.
So I liken this to if your intent to do something is, let's say you want to steal something from a store, or let's say a person wants to steal something from a store and they go into a store with the intent to steal something from the store, and they walk out of the store with that purpose and that intent to steal something from the store, but they walk out of the store and there's nothing in their hand, nothing on their person, they actually haven't removed any items from the store. Then that person hasn't committed a theft because there's nothing that they've taken. There's no materials if we're talking about them in a material sense. So when we're talking about perjury, perjury is when there's a material statement of fact. So the person is saying something is or is not true. And then you can look at that thing to see if the thing is actually true or not, and then you know if the person has committed perjury. Under the amendment to this bill, what is the thing that is or is not true that could be brought to a court of law and could be determined beyond a reasonable doubt that the person did or said that was or was not true?
So when it comes to these records, and what the amendment does is that the individual will have to sign an affidavit under penalty of perjury that they are not signing off on this request for unlawful or fraudulent purposes, because we leave a lot in vital records up to the Maryland Department of Health, and what is covered by penalty of perjury under this amendment and other sections of the current law is really driven in large part on how the Maryland Department of Health sets up their forms and processes and are set up in regs. And we did reach out to MDH. But at a minimum, there appears to always be a requirement that the department has to attest that a request is not made for a fraudulent or unlawful purpose, which is why we stated this in this amendment. So the amendment will codify that baseline attestation, and the department can certainly build on it depending on how they see fit. you know, obviously I'm not the attorney here, but the courts and juries every day are asked in a court of law to be able to make decisions about what a defendant's intent was based on any testimony or evidence that was presented in that courtroom. And I'm confident that our judicial system would be able to make that same assessment in this case here as well.
My concern, Mr. President, is that for, I believe what's being described is the mens rea, the mental state, the intent to commit an offense. But the law has two elements, the mens rea and the actus rea. It is then the action that is the core of any sort of offense and sustaining a verdict on any sort of offense. And there would need to be something that was the material statement of fact that the court and the fact finder could try in the balance of the facts. And if we have the bill and we don't have a fact that the person has to attest to, what we are leaving vulnerable to Marylanders is that the underlying facts are the sex of the individual that is making the designation or for whom the designation is being made. And we are leaving open the door for people's sex to be litigated in court if we don't have some sort of facts that have to be attested to in this attestation clause. Otherwise, if you're trying to figure out if the person had not just the intent to commit perjury, but if they actually made a materially false statement, then we have to have something that is the fact that the person is attesting to. And what this amendment has is it does not restore any facts that they have to attest to the language of the bill. The original bill did have several statements when it was a physician, and the physician had to attest to those facts that the physician had observed. But the amendment does not have that. So, Mr. President, I regrettably would be voting no on this amendment.
All right. On the amendment, any further discussion on the amendment? We have an objection. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Opposed, nay. No.
Roll call.
Senators requested a roll call. On the amendment, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 27 votes in the affirmative, the amendment is adopted. I believe we have another amendment. Recognized Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Give us just a moment, Senators, to collect and distribute the Senator's amendment.
Absolutely, sir.
Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a statement, and then I'd ask the floor leader a question, if I may, sir. Colleagues, birth certificates are the foundation of legal documents that establish a person's identity, citizenship, and family relations. And because they serve as permanent records used throughout the individual's life, they must remain stable, accurate, and historical consistent. Altering birth certificates on basis of population level research findings rather than a verified individual evidence possesses significant legal, ethical, and scientific changes. If the floor leader will
Senator, we have the amendment before us. In order to have it in front of us, the Senator has to explain what the amendment does.
Correct, sir. I was going to do that after his question.
That would be out of order at this point.
Well, I like to do things out of order, sir. No,
Senator is welcome to do that in the hallway, not on the Senate floor.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Mr. President, upon further advice, this amendment requires the Secretary of Health to maintain and create a birth information histories. I tend to believe that this will address the issue that has brought this bill to this floor.
All right, the Senator has moved the amendment.
So I move the amendment, sir.
All right, the floor leader on the amendment.
We'll accept this amendment.
Senator accepts, committee accepts the amendment. Are there any objections to the amendment from the floor? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 626 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, we're going to pause there. We're going to pause there for the day, or not for the day, for this session. We're still waiting for Recognize Senator from the 37th.
Senate Bill 811 from green to red. I would like to be recorded in the red for Senate Bill 811.
811, green to red. Any objections? Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. We are waiting for a second reading report, but I don't think we're going to get it. Let's see, are there any announcements? Let's do announcements. We will definitely be back at 7. We may have to come back before that. Give us just a moment. We're trying to get a status update here. Looking for the printer's office. While we're waiting, let's check with the chair of executive nominations.
Yes, I just want to remind the colleagues that the members that the executive nom is at 5 in the Amos building.
5 o'clock for
Yes.
executive noms.
Yes. Thank you.
5 o'clock for executive noms. Yes, Senator from the 37th.
We have a protocol committee announcement would now be the appropriate time.
Senator
for
may
that.
proceed.
Permission to use the senator's name.
Senator may proceed.
So today is not only a joyous day because it's crossover, but we're celebrating a birthday for one of our colleagues. So please join me in wishing Senator Zucker a very, very happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And Mr.
No place the senator would rather be.
And Mr. President, colleagues, and we couldn't be celebrating Senator Zucker's birthday without also celebrating the birthday of his heralded staff, Shannon Sullivan. So we'd like to send her the best birthday wishes also
That's
from
right.
the chamber
Happy
floor.
birthday to Shannon as well. Wonderful. Any other matters yes, Chair Finance.
Mr. President, I had an email from Executive Noms earlier that the meeting was changed to 4:30.
I think it was from 4:30 to 5.
Now it's been changed back to 5. Okay. I didn't get an updated email.
Let's check with the Chair of Executive Nominations. Excuse me.
Yes, I announced that on the floor when we came back in for the second session. Yeah, but it is at 5.
5
Yes,
o'clock
yeah.
today. 5 o'clock today. Well, any other matters that folks want to discuss as we're, all right. Well, okay, it is what it is. Oh, it turns out we have 2 pages that were just accepted to University of Maryland College Park. Is that right? Is that right? Congratulations. Just now, congratulations. Who was it? Nina and Liam. Who else? Yeah, very good. Excellent. Congratulations. Excellent. Very good. Now, all right, let's do this. 7 o'clock. Yeah, we'll start at 7. Let's do 7. We'll just come back and we'll call it 7 it is. 7 it is. Doesn't pass, doesn't pass. All right. Let's go to finance. So we have exec noms at 5. We've got floor at 7. Senator, want to discuss the weather or the basketball tournament from this weekend? And went well. Yeah. I think we want to get rid of this now instead of later. So, all right, let's say we'll be out of here probably by 3. So still 7 is going to be the return back. So Chair of Finance, okay. B&T?
We will meet at 4:30.
4:30, all right.
For voting.
Nothing for judicial proceedings. All right, we have committee announcements set. All right. All right, we just need a floor report. That's what we're waiting on. So we're waiting on the floor reports for Triple E, yeah. All right.
Mr. President?
Yes, recognize the Senator from Montgomery County.
If we're looking to kill time, I would like the Senate to join me in congratulating Rockville City Council member Adam Van Grack and his beautiful wife Dasha, who were just married on Saturday at a lovely ceremony at Rockville Civic Center Mansion.
Wonderful. Thank you. We wish them well in their nuptials. All right. Well, let's do this. While we've got the second, we still got a second reader. We still got some others that we could take up. What's that? All right. We've got thank you. We've got a Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee. This is report number 25. 2 bills on the report. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 618, Senator Watson, Public Ethics, Members of the General Assembly, State and Local Government Employee Exemption, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill allows a member candidate for election to or a member-elect of the General Assembly to receive earned income from an executive branch unit or political subdivision of the state if the compensation is derived from a transactional relationship that the individual entered into after having served at least 1 full elected term in the General Assembly and has objectively satisfied the minimum education, licensure, and experience requirements for an exception. There are 2 committee amendments. The first is technical. The second authorizes the Joint Committee on Legislative Ethics to exempt an individual from the earned income prohibition if the individual has served 1 full term in the General Assembly or the governing body of a political subdivision of the state, and the individual objectively satisfies the minimum education, licensure, and experience requirement, and the individual complies with the provisions of 5-506 of the General Provision Article prohibiting the use of prestige of office for the official's private gain or that of another to influence, except as part of the official's duty of the official or as a usual and customary constituent services without additional compensation, the award of a state or local contract specific to that person. This amendment also requires the Ethics Committee to issue an opinion to provide guidance to the members of the General Assembly on compliance with this act. The effective date is altered to January 13th, 2027. There is no fiscal impact. I move adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, recognize the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the floor leader would yield for questions.
Senator may proceed.
Just could you go over the difference between what the bill was originally introduced and how it changed with the amendments?
1 second. All right. Under the current law, the public ethics law sets out the requirements, prohibitions, and procedures that affect state officials in the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government for the purpose of maintaining people's trust in government and protecting against improper influence and appearing of improper influence of government. The Maryland Public Ethics Law is administered by the State Ethics Commission with the Joint Committee on Legislative Ethics and the Commission on Judicial Disabilities. Among the requirements, prohibitions, and procedures of the Maryland Public Ethics Law are provisions regarding conflicts of interest for a member candidate for election to or a member-elect of the General Assembly. And so generally, a member candidate or member-elect of the General Assembly is prohibited from receiving earned income from an executive branch unit or political subdivision of the state. However, a member candidate or a member-elect of the General Assembly can receive an exemption from the Joint Ethics Committee if the earned income is for educational instruction provided by the member, a position that is subject to a merit system hiring process, a human service position, or a career promotion change or progression that is logical transition from a pre-existing relationship. So in short, what this bill seeks to do, it states that if a member of the General Assembly, after serving 1 full elected term, There is additional flexibility provided by the Ethics Committee whereby they can consider that member of the General Assembly for being able to take a job in state and local government.
Okay, but specifically to the amendment, the bill was introduced and it had the language about the transaction or relationship that was under a different section of this article, and then it was moved. What was the rationale for the movement of essentially the same language from one part of the bill to the other part?
The difference is the first version of the bill, the Ethics Committee could not weigh in. What this does is still provide oversight by the Ethics Committee to make the final determination with respect to this bill.
Correct. Okay, so the way the bill was introduced, it said that an individual that has served at least one term, essentially that this part of the article does not apply to them, right? And essentially that they would not have to go before the Ethics Committee in order to have a job that works where they would be employed by the state or local government.
You mean the first version?
The first, correct.
Correct.
Okay, so then it was moved to a different part that says now that the Joint Ethics Committee may exempt somebody.
Correct.
Right? And so what we're talking about here, and this is just talks about the individual, because at first the Ethics Committee, as the bill was originally introduced, they would not play a role in this.
Correct.
Now the way it's amended, that an individual would still have to go to the Joint Ethics Committee for an exemption, and it's specified again 1 full term. But then it has to be, the individual has to objectively satisfy the minimum education, licensure, or experience requirements in order to get an exemption, right? This doesn't guarantee.
No, it does not guarantee that, correct.
Okay, and in doing that, this individual could apply for a state, county, municipal, local, any other form of government job. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay. Were there specifics on what did the job have to be advertised? Did there have to be multiple candidates for a particular position? I think the concern that many people have, are these jobs being set up for individuals to take?
Thank you for that question, and you are correct. We really looked very hard at that and wanted to ensure that under the whole provision of not being able to use prestige in office, we did not want an individual from the General Assembly to be given a job, an opportunity just be created out of midair for one specific individual. And so you're correct in your assessment. It has to be a merit process. There has to be a vacancy. There has to be multiple candidates, and the person has to meet all requirements, all licensures, and all experiential requirements to be able to apply for that job.
Okay, and I think that's a big part of the conversation that the Joint Ethics Committee discussed. It was interesting that this, I guess not the whole bill, but the amendment itself came before the Joint Ethics Committee on Friday to, I guess, weigh in on it. It was an interesting conversation, but I think Ethics Committee provided some, I don't know if it necessarily provided the approval of this, but it provided some guidance back to the committee to state that there was multiple concerns on what this could look like if you have legislators also working for state government or also working for local government. And there seemed to be, whether or not it was prestige of office, but conflict of interest was a major concern. You know, could a large county, for instance, you know, find a way to hire multiple state senators in that government and then have undue influence, let's say, over the legislative process? On the other side, maybe a smaller county would not have that same ability to find a way to hire multiple legislators. So we all very much understood what the problem is, and recognize that it is difficult to find jobs when you have to go to your employer and say, I want the first 90 days of the year off to go do something else. But we've seen over and over again that there are ways of, creating jobs that legislators could then, either apply for or be asked to work at, that became a concern that there could be this conflict of interest. What did the committee do in discussing whether or not a state senator or a state delegate could work for a state, a branch of state government, let's say a Department of Natural Resources, just because it's right down the street? How did the committee take that potential conflict of interest in how they would weigh in on legislation?
Thank you. So the question is, if an individual had that type of position before they came to the General Assembly, they would be allowed to keep that job, correct? All right, so if that being the case, they would be under the same rules, criteria, ethics considerations that any other member of the General Assembly has. So for us in the conversation, it was an issue of ethics. An issue of fairness, all right? Now, with respect to your other pieces, it was very important to us that the Ethics Committee was allowed to have a role in this, which is why in the bill, the Ethics Committee is going to provide guidance. The same type of guidance they provide every year before every General Assembly session with respect to campaign, with respect to employees, with respect to all the rules and criterias we are required to uphold. That will be the same thing for the upcoming session as it relates to implementing this act.
Yeah, and that's in the uncodified language down below, in section 2. It talks about two different things. That the Ethics Committee shall issue a new opinion to provide guidance to members of the General Assembly. It also talks about providing guidance on necessary actions a member should take to avoid a conflict of interest. So it right there states what I think we were all very concerned about is there a potential conflict of interest?
Is there a conflict of interest now?
There is.
So the Ethics Committee has the ability today, based on the way things currently are, to weigh in on those things. And there are many of us, including myself, who's been the recipient of hearing some news to make sure we had to modify our actions to stay in line. Right. And so this just gives a little more flexibility, particularly to those of us who've served 10, 20, 25 years, who have deep experience in state and local government, not just education, but energy and AI and a variety of other things, to be able to leverage those skills after they serve one full elected term. So in implementation, what we're talking about is someone who's seeking a second term after fulfilling a full term.
Correct. I understand that's what the bill before us does, but to go to your previous statement about can somebody currently do it, I think that's also been a source of conflict between the Ethics Committee. And rather than allow more to do it, I think there's many people in the Ethics Committee that would say less should do it. In fact, that nobody should work for state government, local government, and be a legislator.
Thank you for that comment, and I think that violates the real reason we're here. We know we sit in the upper chamber. We know the roles that we fill right now were for the aristocracy, for the landowners, and for the slave owners. This was never made for middle-class people like many of us in here. And so the fact that this is a part-time job, and we get years of experience, in-depth knowledge, and a variety of subject matters, to think that we are restricted from being able to perform those functions when somebody who had those functions before they got elected are allowed to keep those, is an issue of fairness. And what we tried to do is to provide flexibility for the Ethics Committee to continue their important role in oversight, to make sure each and every issue and situation is looked at before they render a decision.
Yeah. No, again, and it's just, I think, a differing of opinion. Again, do you take something that's in place where an exemption is currently needed if you held the job before getting elected and keeping the job, that's one thing. You know, you are out there working for, you know, a government body, and then you get elected. That's one thing. It's very different when you are a senator and then you seek to go find a job in state government or local government.
Well,
then it really is potentially that prestige of office that is so concerning.
I understand your perspective. Mr. President, I understand the senator's perspective. This is an area of disagreement because whether you got the job before or after, you're still subject to the same criteria. You're still subject to the same rules of the road with respect to ethics that we all must abide by. And I'll go back again and say it's an issue of fairness. Whether you had the job before shouldn't give you preferential treatment over somebody who seeks that type of position with the skill set in a merit position where there is a vacancy and they satisfy all the criteria to be able to get that same job.
Again, I think it's very different. I think it's very different that you have a job in state government and then decide to go out to the public and get elected. Then it truly is, you know, you've gone out to everybody and you said, here's my ideas.
A senator.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry, you're correct. Then it truly is an election that put that individual in office. Now it's the opposite. Now the individual is currently sitting in one of these chambers as an elected official with prestige of office and going out and getting a job within state government. So it's extremely different. Instead of the entire, you know, electorate of a district saying that you should be that you should be an elected official, you should be a senator or delegate, it's now a hiring authority that says, senator or delegate, you should now work in my administration. And I think that's the concern of where this goes, of saying, you know, should we be in a position of potentially all of us working for some other form of government while we're sitting in here making the very legislation that affects those forms of government?
Senator, one thing I will say, colleagues, one thing I will say is that inherently in a lot of the things dealing with ethics, we need to update things. We haven't looked at some of these rules in over 25 years. And many people know my own personal story. I served as a hard-working member of the school board for 4 years. Traveled the country with Nancy Grasmick to Denmark to look at CTE programs and bring those back. Served 2 governor appointmentships related to education. But none of that experience is allowable today to get a job in education because that education, that experience occurred through elected office. There are many things that we need to take a fresh look at and to modernize it for today. And so while I understand your point, we're not going to agree on it. We can look at 2 sides of the same thing. But I just believe that, and you as a member of the Ethics Committee, you now have an opportunity to weigh in and figure out what these guardrails look like with respect to the guidance that you're going to come out with.
I appreciate that, and that's obviously what we had, was part of our meeting that we had, is to really try to figure out what those guardrails are. I am not concerned, I do not necessarily agree that those comments that were made in the committee that day were actually transferred into the uncodified language. I mean, I know it brings it up, but there were bigger concerns about, you know, potentially, you know, could leadership, a committee chair or committee vice chair or president of the Senate, do the rules apply to them the same way that it applies to everybody else?
Thank you for that question. Everybody sitting in here is a leader. Everyone sitting in this room is a leader. Whether you're a subcommittee chair, or a vice chair of a committee, or committee chair, or even the Senate president, everybody in here is a leader. And so I don't see the distinction between saying some people are allowed to do one thing, and because you have done your job that you were elected to do and rose up in leadership, you are not allowed to do certain things. I go back to the fundamental issue of fairness, and that just is not fair.
Well, again, fairness is sometimes very different than public perception. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we deal with in the ethics committee all the time, whether or not somebody actually broke a rule or what is the public perception. And a lot of times the public perception is very different than our rules. And our rules allow things to happen. But when you talk about it and conversation happens, you'd see, well, you know what, the public really wouldn't buy into that. And I think that's what a concern is right now. When you talk about second jobs for people, you know, or different employment opportunities for people, you know, certainly it is a little bit different with the private sector making a decision to hire somebody knowing that they may or not be able to be, you know, in the same level of working during the 90-day legislative session. I think it's very different when you talk about taxpayer dollars, you know, where taxpayers are paying to be a legislator and to work for a county or state, a part of state government at the same time. And that question got brought up as well too. Can an individual receive money from both General Assembly and a form of government at the same time? For those 90 days that we're here, can you collect paycheck from both?
No, you cannot double dip. I think we talked about that with respect to leaves of absence and those types of things. And again, those will be some of the guidelines that you and the members of the committee will provide to the entirety of General Assembly.
Okay. All right. Well, I obviously appreciate the conversation. Mr. President, there is an amendment on, and I'd ask that the bill and the amendment lie over in the rule to just consider this a little bit further. Thank you very much, Mr. Floor Leader.
All right. Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 983, Senator McCray, Higher Education Academic Program Approval. Objections favorable with 2 amendments.
All right. Recognizing the senator from the 27th District as the floor leader.
Appreciate it, Mr. President. Senate Bill 983, Higher Education Academic Program Approval. Objections favorable with 2 amendments. This bill allows the Maryland Higher Education Commission, MHEC, or any institution of higher education in the state to file an objection against implementing any proposed new academic program at a public or private nonprofit institution of higher education that will be implemented using existing resources. Under current law, objections are limited to graduate programs to be implemented using existing resources. The objections process is the same as under current law for the graduate programs. This bill takes effect July 1, 2026. There are 2 amendments. One amendment is technical. The second amendment requires the Program Review Advisory Council with MHEC to study and make recommendations on extending the academic program approval objection process to new undergraduate programs proposed by public or private nonprofits with considerations of relevant federal and state legal proceedings regarding unnecessary programs duplication. The Advisory Council must submit a report to EEE and the Appropriations Committee on or before December 31st, 2026, alters the effective date to terminate in 1 year on June 30th, 2027. I move the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and a favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 983 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reading. All right, now we are officially going to pause. So it's 3:15, 5 o'clock exec noms, back here at 7. Recognize Senator from District 11.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Could the members of the Senate from Baltimore County please join me in the red room right after session, please?
Baltimore County delegation. Any other delegations, caucuses, joint committees? If not, let's do a quorum call.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 42 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until 7 p.m.
Without objection, so ordered. See you at 7. Have a wonderful afternoon.